Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to what might be the last episode of Your Friend Who Likes Games. Not as cheerful of a start as normal, but I think this is a practice that I need to put to a close. Unfortunately, as much as I enjoy doing this podcast and taking notes on games and taking the time to record my thoughts in audio form, it is something that has been kind of battling my real life, my life outside of this. And, in conversations with my wife and my new family, I'm a new dad. It is something that it unfortunately feels like I can't afford anymore. And my ego would say that this is something that I never thought would happen. And it is. And while it feels sad to start here, it also is, this is a really hard decision to make, but I think also a really easy one. Last year with the podcast, I really put pressure on myself to play at least one game a week, like to completion, and in a very review style format, talk about the games. And that was with an ego of I felt like I was the person bringing indie games to the spotlight that quote unquote no one had ever heard of. And at least that was the mentality behind it. But I've come to find that there are plenty of people out there that have done really nice work in covering indie games. And while that can be intimidating in this space, it also shows, that this space is a little oversaturated at times. I think it's interesting how competitive it feels. It's interesting how quick people are to try to be first. And this is a space for an amateur that you can never be first, unless you are given games beforehand, which, through the podcast, I've gotten the opportunity to play a game early, which I never thought would ever happen. And thank you to the folks at I Miss My Friend's studio in the early and Wholesome Games to, allow me to play an early version of Fishbowl. And while that was an awesome opportunity, it still felt like work, which is really interesting. It was work. I enjoyed the opportunity. I was very thankful for it, and it was cool to play the game early. But, I had taken 2025 as it's my responsibility to make this podcast, even though it is completely self pressure. It's not something anybody is making me do. It's a passion project. And, then I discovered late in 2025 Into the Aether, and the folks over there, while it now is what they do full time, have done it for a long time and are very clear about wanting to play games that they want to play, and follow their whims, and I'm using their words, and it's something that they've wanted to do in their own way, and it was really inspiring. So I thought, let's change the model, and let's actually do a podcast that follows how I play video games. But with my real life and, the way I go about my life and the amount of time I get to or not get to play video games, or even just my natural interests, it's I'm a person that continues to desire to play Stardew Valley because it's my favorite game of all time. And in this space, that feels undervalued. If it's not fresh, it's not anything new to say. So therefore, I don't play those games. I don't revisit those. And sadly, like, just enjoying something isn't good for this algorithm. Like, there's in regards to like things to say, like, there's nothing that I can say about I just enjoy Stardew Valley. That's not a podcast episode. So therefore, searching for new experiences. And I had gotten into a place where, week after week, if I played the same game, I would just continue talking about it. But also, like, engagement. Like, since I've changed the format of the show and have it coming out on a weekly basis, and even switching over to YouTube for availability, engagement has kind of dwindled, and that is feedback that tells me that, like, this isn't necessarily being used. And that's okay. I think I need to just be okay with that. And I think the origin of all of this was, and I will be candid here, that I had a drinking problem in the past. And I think that I was finding a way to chase joy in a new way. And Stardew Valley was like a game and the game that like really changed my life, that said, like, I don't have to do all this other stuff and I don't drink anymore. I can chase joy and be happy. And, I wanted to share that. I wanted to share that passion. And frankly, no one in my life really shares any of that passion. So I figure, let's start a podcast. And, I did reach out to an old friend that isn't directly in my life, and asked if he would be interested in doing a podcast. And Spencer, if you're listening, thank you for getting this whole thing started. We did it for a little bit, him and I. It was called Your Friends Who Like Games, and we tried, and he recognized early that it kind of, this podcast practice of analyzing and documenting your play experiences through talking can really kind of suck the soul out of what you enjoy, because you're putting it somewhere else, and you're kind of feeding the machine in that way. And that's all to be said about, like, the pressure of all of this that I put on myself, and the pressure to record. And I think what I started to notice is that, like, I would put pressure on myself throughout the week to make sure I'm playing games. And if I wasn't playing games, I was devaluing everything else in my life that was getting in the way of playing games for the show. All for 7 views on YouTube, And for a while, I could tell myself, like, it's really nice to have anyone engage with the show. You can spin it that way and say, like, I can be thankful that I had an indirect conversation with somebody about video games. And, if my life were different, sure, like, that is something that I think I could continue to do, just kind of put it out there and see what happens. It does give me some nice, like, weekly purpose, and I do like taking notes on games. But, like, I want to just, like, play Mario Kart World because I want to play Mario Kart World. Not because, like, it's the splashy launch title of Nintendo Switch 2, because I need to find something unique to say about it. I want to just, like, play it when I feel like playing it. I want to play, like, a different game every night because I'm a moody gamer and want to see what that's about. I want to enjoy my collection. I want to skip Titanium Court. I want to not try to keep up with what everybody's talking about, because it feels like in this podcast space where I thought, and I can't say connections haven't been made. I want to thank, like, DJ Stormageddon and Chris from Honest Indies, You two especially have been very communicative, and Cozy by Joshi as well. You three have been very communicative on social media, and it's just nice to have made connections with people and talk about games and our passion in that way. But there are other times too with like other shows and things that if we're all trying to do our own thing with the show, it's not necessarily a conversation. It's more so like, this is my thing and I'm doing it this way, when really like a lot of times it can feel like we're talking about the same thing, just in our own way, and we're all kind of chasing. And I'm painting a broad stroke here, but it can feel like we are all just like chasing relevancy. And I'm not saying the three of you that I just mentioned are doing that. I'm just saying in general, I think a lot of people in this space tend to chase, relevancy, and that is kind of with I've had a mental health journey through therapy and continue to, and that's kind of the opposite of what I have been reading about, like bettering my life. I the sort of I want to be okay with being ordinary. I want to be okay with not being like extravagant or famous or popular. And I don't know if I can't say that wasn't like the goal of the podcast. I also think like I am an educator and the job is really hard. And I think this has been another attempt to get out in some way, or find an escape and just like, stamp like myself like doing something else opposed to my day job. And it has been I've made it as close to enjoyable as possible, but I think with the new demand of my life and being a new father, like I not only need to be available, but I want to be. Like I want to be available every day in any moment I can be. And this like, sorry babe, I got to record a podcast feels really dumb. Like it feels not, I guess dumb can be a word, or just like arbitrary, like for something that sure like is good for me and my joy and kind of documenting my time with games. I've been thinking about like, I thought early before doing the podcast that like that I could express in words here what these things mean to me, but like to this day, no amount of talk here could tell anyone or show anyone like how important Eastward is to me, or like how Stardew Valley changed my life. Like those are things that like a podcast conversation or talk like can't just do, unfortunately. And it's not something I anticipated or knew going into it. I kind of thought that a passion could be shared, and I even kind of noticed, like I did a recent episode when I talked about Donut County, and like that game was super foundational and important to me, and like just saying it's foundational is like it's just words. And I think what I'm looking forward to beyond this practice is enjoying, like for myself. And that sounds so cliche and it sounds so simple, but like the answer really is simple. I think it's like just moving to a space where I'm free to enjoy games that I want to enjoy and play the games I want to play, or not, like, and just kind of live my life and play a little more freely without the kind of ego of a podcast behind it. This feels really good now and feels really simple now, and I think it may be hard at times. I think it's been a practice that I've almost done individually for 2 years. It would be 2 years in October, so not quite 2 years, but long enough to where it's evolved over time. I think about it constantly. And I think like, I made a pro-con list today that brought me to tears, realizing like it's over. Like the cons really outweighed the pros. And a lot of my pros were like fear of what would happen if I don't. And that's not a good place to be. I think it's one of those things like I like doing the podcast, but I don't love the social media part of it, or the need to like constantly be posting things that, a couple people like. And I just am not on people's algorithms, or not relevant enough. And in order to be relevant enough, you really have to give up a lot. And I don't even know how to be successful in that, But here's what I'm telling myself. Like I grew up skateboarding, and I did that for 10 solid years until I realized that my body can't afford it. I rode bikes and was like a big cyclist, lifestyle, like commuted to work and back. And I don't commute to work anymore because my time can't afford it. And my life can't afford it. I was a self-proclaimed illustrator and artist for over 10 years. And same thing, kind of posted to social media, all sorts of things that I did for a couple people on consistent to like it. And I'm noticing the same pattern here. I'm noticing the same couple people see and like what I do. And while that is very nice, and I'm thankful for that, it's just something that, doesn't seem to be completely of use, or there doesn't seem to be a need for it. I just listened to Chris Plant's talk at New York about doing some sort of like creative endeavor with podcasting, or where video games journalism goes now. And he said like, don't just do the thing that everybody else is doing. And like, I feel like I'm just doing what Into the Aether is doing. And I think that might not be a mystery to any of you that know that show and have listened to this show. Like they play games each week and they talk about them, and it's really low key and great. And I love it. And I had been loving it too, but it is just something that, at least in this format of talking to a microphone in the podcast form, like it's just not, it's not a format that I could afford to continue anymore. Like I started thinking and anticipating of like my son getting older and being like I have to tell my 2-year-old son, like, I'm going to go in the other room and record a podcast, and like, while he wants to spend time with me. Like, no, like that feels terrible, and like not something that I want to ever do. So, I swore this wouldn't happen. And I think that's my ego saying like I could still do it and want to maintain. But I'm in a place in my life where I'm really trying to shed ego. I've had a lot of it in my life. I've had a lot of like main character syndrome, and a lot of just that, like thinking I'm like the center of the universe, where I'm not, and I don't want to be anymore. I want to have what in Ed Leering psychology calls community feeling, and have consideration of others and be connected in that way. Going forward, I don't want to say anything specific of like what I intend to do. I would like to slow down on social media, but it's been a nice place to connect with people that like games. So I think as of right now, the social media will just kind of be like a post-podcast social media where I can still be, available. So if you ever want to talk about games, please reach out. I had thought about maybe doing a blog, but like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want this. I don't know if I want to keep the pressure of having something to say. I think my biggest fear going forward is like, with this kind of passion I have, like, where do I put it? And maybe I need to learn to keep it. Maybe I need to learn to just enjoy and like keep things in my heart and keep what's special about Eastward and Short Hike and Toem, like how those games like changed my life for the better and showed me like what, joy can be in the form of a video game. And that indie games can provide that, and that, not only indie games, but a lot of AAA games too. I'm really enjoying my Nintendo time this year. Yeah, I am very thankful for anyone that gave this a shot, and gave it a chance. Very thankful to have given it a try, and kind of looking at it like Schitt's Creek wrapped up their last season, or I'm not like deleting it. It'll still be there, and that collection of experiences in audio form will always be there. And I'm wrapping it up, at least for now. And who knows what the future holds, right? Like, this is something I did for a while. Maybe it comes back, but at least right now, this is a farewell and a thank you and a let's stay in touch via social media. Like I said, slowing down, but feel free to message me there, or let's chat about games. Looking forward to the freedom to just kind of be in my life and not have my life get in the way of this podcast intention, and not have it kind of be at war with who I am outside of it. So that feels right. This all feels good. I think I said what I have been thinking and feeling. And yeah, I think that will do it. It's hard to end this one. It's hard to say goodbye, but I think right now it is necessary. So cheers to that. I hope you all keep playing awesome games, and hope to talk to you in other ways. Take care, everybody, and thank you.